Have you ever imagined a big secret that has been tightly locked behind the glitter of the K-pop stage? A band that almost destroyed the most emotional bond between two of the world's biggest stars? What really happens when the camera goes off? And why should a mother figure intervene in this unexpected maelstrom of conflict? Check out this in-depth investigation to uncover the veil that has been deliberately hidden from the public. Before we dive deeper into the mystery surrounding these two global icons, be sure to like them, write your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe so you don't miss out on exclusive updates from this investigative news series. Your support means a lot to us to continue to present the truth behind the scenes of the entertainment industry. Is it possible that a sincere affection is actually considered the biggest threat to a person's career? What if the bond that has been considered the main source of strength by millions of fans around the world is actually the reason behind the intense tension that occurs in closed meeting rooms in Seoul? These questions begin to haunt the minds of anyone trying to peer deeper into the internal dynamics of the phenomenal group BTS, specifically regarding the relationship between Jeon Jungkook and Park Jimin. For years, the public was treated to heartwarming scenes of closeness, but behind every smile caught on camera, a much darker and more complex narrative lay hidden. A secret involving industry pressures, family expectations, and a band that almost changed modern music history forever. It all started when the stage lights dimmed and the noise of the stadium replaced with a stifling silence in a black van that took them home. In the early years of their debut, public interest in the dynamic between the members was commonplace. But for the management, the closeness between Jungkook and Jimin began to be viewed through a different lens. There is a fine line that industry leaders say should not be crossed, an invisible boundary that if exceeded will trigger unimaginable consequences. Their relationship is not just an ordinary friendship. There's an intensity felt by those around them, an energy that makes some feel the need to intervene before it is too late. Why should a seemingly positive closeness be limited? Is there a fear that the image of their perfect idol will crack if the world finds out how deep the emotional dependence is between them? The real surprise comes when we look back at the moments that we have considered trivial. Do you remember those times when their interactions suddenly seemed limited in front of the camera? Or when their schedules begin to be systematically separated for no apparent reason? It wasn't a coincidence. It was part of a larger scheme to create distance. This pressure came not only from within the agency, but also from whispers outside that worried about Jungkook's future as the Golden Magne. As the youngest member to shoulder the burden of overwhelming expectations, Jungkook is under intense scrutiny. Jimin, on the other hand, who has always shown a deep protective and caring nature, inadvertently puts himself in a vulnerable position. The notoriously conservative and calculating South Korean entertainment industry began to see their bond as an uncontrollable variable. Yet, amidst all that professional pressure, there is one most defining yet rarely heard voice, that of a mother. Jungkook's mother, who has remained behind the scenes and rarely interferes in her son's career, finally felt the need to speak out. His feelings are mixed between a desire to protect his son's future and a deep empathy for the sincere relationship he witnessed himself. Through sources very close to the family's inner circle, it was revealed that there were emotional moments in which the mother had to face a heart-rending dilemma. He saw how his son grew up under tremendous pressure, and how Jimin's presence became both a refuge and a point of vulnerability. The statements that began to leak from private conversations showed that he was actually aware of the ban, and his response was completely beyond the expectations of anyone who thought he would side with the agency's interests alone. This tension reached its peak on a winter night a few years ago, an incident that had never been reported by any media until recently. In a quiet apartment in the Hanamdong area, a serious discussion took place. Not a discussion about contracts or royalties, but rather about the right to feel and express human closeness. The management had given a stern warning, and the atmosphere within the group had become very awkward. Jungkook, who is usually calm and docile, begins to show signs of emotional rebellion. He does not understand why the world wants to regulate who he can love as a brother or as his closest friend. The clues hidden in the song's lyrics and their stylistic choices during that period were actually cryptic messages addressed to one another, a way to stay connected under suffocating scrutiny. For those who are observant, the signs are everywhere. Notice how their gaze changes when they think the camera is no longer recording. There's a deep sadness, but also a strong determination. The public's curiosity grew. What exactly did Jungkook's mother say in a secret meeting with the agency? Did he really give his blessing, or was he the one who first asked for the relationship to be limited for the sake of Jungkook's position at the top of the world? The answer to this question will open the veil over another, rarely discussed side of fame, about how a mother should balance between the great ambitions of a star and the true happiness of an ordinary mortal. We often see idol life as a modern fairy tale filled with ease and luxury. But the reality facing Jungkook and Jimin is a stifling maze of rules. Their every move is watched, their every word filtered, and their every emotion curated. The ban that was imposed on their relationship was not just an administrative advice, but an order that had to be obeyed if they wanted to stay on the path of success. However, love, in whatever form it may be it a deep friendship or an inseparable bond of brotherhood, often has its own way of going against the tide. The stronger the pressure to separate, the tighter the bond is formed behind the scenes. The emotional twist in this narrative is not just about two big stars, but about a universal struggle to maintain self-identity amid the demands of the world. Jungkook, with all his talent and charisma, turns out to be just a young man looking for a place to lean, and he finds it in Jimin. Similarly, Jimin, whose heart is so tender, feels he has a responsibility to keep Jungkook from the harshness of the outside world. When agencies try to extinguish this closeness for reasons of market strategy, they do not realize that they're dealing with something much more powerful than just an employment contract. They're dealing with the most basic human instincts. This news will not stop on the surface only. We will delve deeper into the phone conversations that took place between Jungkook's mother and Jimin in the most difficult moments, when the pressure from the management reached an unbearable point. What exactly did the mother whisper to Jimin, who was in a slump? And why did the agency's top brass feel so threatened by that one conversation? It has been speculated that Jungkook's mother has a much more progressive and loving perspective than many people imagine, a perspective that makes the agency have to think twice before taking any further action. However, behind it all, the shadow of the ban still haunts, creating tension that at any moment can explode into a scandal that shakes the K-pop industry to its roots. Do you ever feel that something is not right every time you see their interactions that seem too regulated? Have you ever felt the thrill of sadness behind Jungkook's laughter as he stood away from Jimin on the award stage? It's not just your imagination. It was the result of a system that tried to format human feelings to fit the business mold. But the real surprise lies not in the ban itself, but in how they survive under the pressure. They created their own secret language, a way to communicate without words, under the noses of their managers and security guards. Know them as unattainable stars. But in this story, we will see them as fragile human beings who only want to have one person who truly understands them unconditionally. The bond between Jungkook and Jimin is symbolic of resistance to a cold system, and Jungkook's mother's involvement provides a very deep emotional dimension. Get ready for a journey that will drain your emotions and logic, because the truth is often stranger and more painful than any fiction you have ever heard. It is here at the beginning of this great revelation that we have just touched the gateway to a truth that will change the way you see your favorite idols forever. Every word written here is a puzzle piece that will come together over time. Nothing is a coincidence in this world full of image management. Bans are real, agency fears are real, and Jungkook and Jimin struggle to keep what they have as a real drama unfolding before the eyes of all of us, albeit hidden behind the silk curtains of the world stages. And when Jungkook's mother finally opens her voice, the vibration will be felt all over the world, exposing all the falsehoods that have been so neatly built by a control-hungry industry. Have you ever wondered what it's like to live under a giant microscope, where every blink of an eye and every touch of a hand is analyzed by millions of people, while behind the scenes, there are powerful hands trying to control your every natural movement? This is the reality that began to crush Jimin and Jungkook as their popularity shot beyond national borders. Amid the deafening cheers in the stadiums of the world, a silent tension began to creep through the backstage halls. The agency, which has been the architect of their success so far, begins to feel that the emotional closeness between these two youngest members has gone beyond the limits of the security of the image they have built. They refer to it as risk management, but for Jungkook and Jimin, it was the beginning of painful exclusion within their own circles. An internal document of a highly confidential nature, the existence of which is known only to a handful of people on the top floor of the agency building, supposedly contains detailed instructions on how to cool the public interaction between the two in order to preserve a stronger individual narrative. What, then, actually triggers this panic at the managerial level? Was there an incident that never leaked to the public, a moment of honesty too raw for the market to consume? Sources close to the production staff told of a backstage incident during a world tour in Europe, during which Jungkook experienced tremendous physical and mental exhaustion. At a time when everyone was busy with technical matters, Jimin was the only person who was able to calm the magne in a way that no medical staff could. However, instead of getting appreciation for the emotional stability he gave, Jimin actually got a hard reprimand a few days later. He was summoned to a soundproof room, where he was told in a cold tone that his excessive attention to Jungkook was starting to look unprofessional and could spark speculation that certain markets did not want. Imagine the pressure felt by a young man who just wanted to keep his best friend, but instead was accused of undermining the strategy of a multi-million-dollar business. This tension does not stop there. Jungkook, who has sharp instincts despite his youngest age, immediately senses something has changed. He realized that every time he tried to approach Jimin in front of the camera, suddenly there were staff interrupting or managers giving codes to change positions. It's a subtle form of insulation designed in such a way as to be invisible to the lay enthusiast's eye, yet for both of them, it feels like a thick wall of glass. They could see each other, could talk through the microphone, but the sincere intimacy that had been the fuel of their passion began to be forcibly extinguished. A rhetorical question also arises in their minds. Is the price of becoming a world star the loss of the right to be a human being with feelings? Does every hug have to have a marketing purpose, and every laugh has to have a script? In this increasingly stifling situation, Jungkook's mother's role began to shift from mere remote observer to an active protector. Through reports from family insiders, it was discovered that Jungkook began contacting his mother frequently not to talk about success or sold-out concerts, but to vent his confusion. She told me about how she felt watched every time she wanted to spend time with Jimin. The mother, who had extraordinary inner sensitivity, began to smell irregularities in the way the agency handled her son's mental well-being. He is not the type of person who is easily influenced by the glitter of wealth. For him, Jungkook's true happiness is a top priority. When she heard that Jimin had begun to distance himself out of fear of the career consequences for Jungkook, her mother felt that this was an injustice that must be addressed immediately. A deeper shock ensued when a text message allegedly sent by Jungkook's mother to one of the senior managers leaked into an insider's ear. The content of the message is not an outrage, but a very sharp and disturbing question. Are you building a music icon, or are you building a golden prison for my son's feelings? This message reportedly created panic in the artist management department. They did not expect that the Jungkook family would interfere in what they considered to be a branding strategy. However, for the mother, Jungkook and Jimin's relationship isn't just content for fans. It's a support system that keeps Jungkook sane amid the insane pressures of the industry. He knew full well that without Jimin, Jungkook might have long since disintegrated under the weight of the expectations he had carried since the age of 15. However, the agency remains a cold business machine. Instead of softening, they are tightening surveillance. There are reports of distance rules imposed during photo shoots and filming of variety content. If you pay attention to the videos of a certain period, you will see how Jungkook is often seen looking around for Jimin's whereabouts with his eyes, only to be later forced to turn away by the director's instructions. This is a very dangerous psychological game. On the one hand, they should look compact as a group, but on the other hand, these two closest individuals are forbidden to show their true closeness. This frustration began to creep into their performance. There were nights where rehearsals lasted until dawn in eerie